All right, now we are in a situation whereby the economic situation has made life to become a little bit harder. And all we need is survival tactics so that we can be able to maneuver through these hard economic times. And ladies and gentlemen, there are things that you can do so that you can make sure that you have stayed liquid in these particular hard economic times. And when I say by staying liquid, when we talk about liquid, you know, when we talk about liquid is being able to pay your short-term debts, or just in layman's language, being able to meet your be able to pay your bills, or meet your expenses, your daily expenses, and so on and so on. So if you are liquid, we say that you can be able to meet your expenses, your daily expenses, and so on and so on. Now, the opposite of this is illiquid. Illiquid. Now, if you are illiquid, then it means that you are not able to meet your expenses, or you don't have money to meet your short-term goals. For example, rent, salaries, and so on and so on, if you have a business. So, ladies and gentlemen, during these hard economic times whereby we are experiencing not a lot of money that is circulating in the economy, and of course we are experiencing high cost of products and services, and so on and so on. So what we need is survival tactics. And ladies and gentlemen, we can have several survival tactics in which, or several approaches in which we can approach or use so that we can be able to maneuver through this hard economy. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to share with you 5 approaches that you can be able to approach or use so that you can be able to maneuver through these hard economic times. And these approaches has been proven to have worked there before. And if you use them, they are actually going to at least help you at a personal level, but not in organizational level. Here we are talking about personal level. You as an individual, if you have a family, if you don't have a family, and so on and so on. Now, if you look at our today's economic situation, we have also fresh graduates and so many young people who are aged between who are at age of between let's say from 22 years to 30 years. Quite a very good number of people or graduates who have come out from universities and they don't have their jobs, or they have not been able to secure their jobs, and therefore probably if they don't have good paying jobs, they are either trying to look for daily incomes whereby they can just meet the daily expenses such as rent, food, and so on and so on, and therefore they have. But now remember, even if you are earning a very small amount of money, there are always ways in which you can approach so that you can be able to even use that small amount of money to use it in a very good way, so that you can be able to even make sure that you stay liquid even with what the smallest amount you are earning. So ladies and gentlemen, in this particular video, I'm gonna share with you 5 ways in which you can stay liquid in these economic hard times, 5 ways in which you can stay liquid at a personal level or at individual level in this particular economy. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to waste my time. I just want to remind you that this is another reason that you should stay subscribed in this particular channel. And if you're seeing me for the first time, my name is Sir John Mweri. I'm a professional accountant with Xfinop Accountancy and Insurance Consultancy. And our work is what you are seeing right now. We normally come here with a whiteboard and a pen and discuss about economics, discuss about businesses, investments, and so on and so on. And we have made a lot of videos in this particular channel. You can just go to my channel and see all those videos, close to 100 videos. You can be able to watch them and actually gain a lot of content there, and actually gain something or grab something that can be able to help you. So ladies and gentlemen, this is another reason that you should stay subscribed. Make sure you give me a like on this particular video. And if you feel that you want to add something, you can always put your comment on the comment section. Also, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, put your notifications bells on so that anytime I upload a video, you are the first person to get that particular video. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on my point number 1, to stay liquid, to make sure that you stay liquid in this economy of right now, whereby we have inflation, we have prices of goods and services going up, where we don't have a lot of money circulating this in the economy, and so on and so on. Number one, you need to make sure that you have budgeted wisely. You need to make sure that you budget wisely. All right. So we said there before that one of the ways that you can be able to manage your cash and cash equivalents, or one of the ways that you can be able to manage your current assets, or the cash that you have, or that income that you're getting from your small business, from your kiosk, from your salary, and so on and so on. One of the ways that has been proven most effective ways of managing your cash, whichever income that you're earning, is through budgeting. And ladies and gentlemen, when I talk about budgeting, is where you're going to allocate money in different areas. For example, you say, I'm going to allocate this money to my rent. I'm going to allocate this money to my daily expenses, such as food and transport. I'm going to allocate this money to my internet. I'm going to allocate this money to my entertainment expenses. I'm going to allocate this money to my paying of debts, and so on and so on. That is what we call a budget. Coming up with your expenses and actually allocating money accordingly, depending on how you normally spend. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to stay liquid, if you want to make sure that you always have money, despite that you are earning a small amount of money, you need to budget wisely. And when I say that you need to budget wisely, you need to allocate your money wisely. So when it comes to rent, how much have you allocated to rent? When it comes to your wants or your entertainment in these particular hard economic times, do you really need to have a lot of entertainment? No. So you need to make sure that you have budgeted wisely. You might say that I'm going to use a 50-30-20 rule, whereby 50% are going to my needs, 20% to my investments, and 30% to my wants. Then if you realize that the economy is hitting you hard, and actually you have to rearrange that, you can actually find yourself that this 30% of the entertainment that you have put to yourself, you can actually make it 15%, and the rest of 15% you say, let me retain this for a rainy day. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, budgeting wisely is very important and very crucial and very sensitive at this particular moment, because you need to make sure that at all costs you have stayed liquid, and always make sure that you have some money in your pocket. So ladies and gentlemen, on my first point is budget wisely. Just make sure that you have a very good budget, a budget that is flexible, a budget that you can be able to change anytime you want, and see this budget needs to change somewhere, because somewhere money is not aligning to my needs. So ladies and gentlemen, make sure you purchase or you make a very good budget. Do not exaggerate on some expenses. All right. And therefore do not even underpay some expenses, so that you can have a balance, but make sure that you budget wisely. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the second thing that you need to make sure that you have done is to cut unnecessary costs. So if I just put it on the whiteboard, you cut unnecessary costs. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about cutting unnecessary costs, there are these costs that you are going to have in your life that are not really necessary, or probably there is something that you're doing that is costing you money, but in real sense, even if it's costing you money, it's something that you could stop for a while, or you could do away with it for like a certain period of time, and then when things get better, you can actually go back into it. So you need to cut unnecessary costs. For example, let me talk about clothes. This is an area whereby people are going to spend a lot of money, because it's always good to look good and to feel comfortable when you're walking, even in public, and to make sure that you have put on very good clothes. And of course, there are people who have a taste of luxury, and so on and so on. Sorry. So clothes is one of the areas in which you don't have to exaggerate a lot if you have some liquidity issues. So if you wear designer clothes and you have started experiencing that you have some liquidity issues, whereby you are not having some money, you love designer clothes so much, you can actually buy a shoe. You can actually buy a shoe at Kenya shilling 6,000. You can buy a trouser You can buy a trouser at Kenya shillings 5,500. Such kind of clothes that are going to be expensive. Here is where you need to cut the unnecessary, because at this particular moment where you have liquidity issues, this cost of buying a shoe at 6,000 and a trouser at 5,500 and probably a sweater at 10,000, that cost is considered as unnecessary costs. You see, it's considered unnecessary cost, because here you could say that now I can buy a trouser at 2,500 so that the 3,000 can go to my liquidity, so that I can improve on my liquidity. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, this is another area that you need to improve. Now, if you just if you do away with shoes, you can talk even about eating habits. All right. Eating habits. I'm just explaining this point of cutting unnecessary cost. Look at the eating habits. There are people who are going to prefer to eat in a hotel. All right. There are people who are going to prefer to eat in a hotel. And ladies and gentlemen, if you all know that eating in a hotel is going to cost you a lot of money, and in most cases you are not going to be full stomach. It's just a snack. You can take some tea and 2 chapatis, and then you find that you have paid some 200 Kenya shillings there. So eating habits is another area that you have to look at, because it normally consumes a lot. Especially if you are that person who likes going out and eating in hotels and so on and so on. You want to take lunch there, breakfast and supper. You rarely cook in your house. So this is another way of cutting unnecessary costs. Now I'm encouraging you to start cooking so that you can be able to save that particular money. So really here, when we talk about improving on our liquidity and making sure that we stay liquid in these hard economic times, it's actually changing our habits. Because if you look at budgeting wisely, it's about actually changing the habit. If you look at cutting unnecessary costs, you can see it's actually being able to a little bit selfish to yourself, so that you can be able to, so that you may not spend all the money buying clothes, or you spend all the money having fun, and at the end of it all you just start calling your friends and telling them, can you give me 500, help me with 2,000, then I'm going to return, and then you find yourself in debt. So ladies and gentlemen, cutting unnecessary costs is very important. You just need to adjust yourself little by little, and you're going to realize that things are going to align according to your needs. Now, number 3, ladies and gentlemen, on my list, we have to look for more sources of. This one is very practical. Look for more sources of income. Look for more sources of income. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you might be having one source of income. For example, if you are a salaried person, that means you are receiving wages at the end of the month. If you have a business that you normally get some income each and every day, if you have any kind of place that you are earning your income, it doesn't matter, as long as it's one source of income. These hard economic times should actually teach you something, that when you depend on one economic, or when you depend on one source of income, the economy can easily swipe away that source of income, and then all of a sudden you find yourself that you no longer have an income. So ladies and gentlemen, if you just remember COVID-19, how it came, COVID-19 is a pandemic, and it's something that you cannot be able to control. It's a risk that it's an undiversified risk. You cannot diversify something that you cannot control. So if you look at COVID-19, a lot of people, because of the lockdown, a lot of people lost their jobs. So it's something that you could not control, because if an organization has to close, or you have to restructure because of getting losses, then it's something that you cannot be able to control. Now, assuming a lot of people who lost their jobs, they had only one source of income, and the pandemic comes. Unajua, a pandemic is an economic situation. So when it comes, it swipes away your income and so on and so on. And then you realize that you no longer have a source of income that a few hours ago you are enjoying. So ladies and gentlemen, this one is very important and very practical, that you need to make sure that you have an extra source of income. At least have 3 or 4 sources of income, whereby if you know this job, today you don't have it, tomorrow you have somewhere else that you can get some money. If there it becomes bad, then you have other sources of income whereby you can get some money. Because if you only have one source of income, then you are at risk of being illiquid, or you have the risk of liquidity, whereby you might not have been be able to have money that you need to cater for your expenses, and so on and so on. So ladies and gentlemen, looking for more sources of income. If you are a salaried employee, you can look for what you can do online. You can open a business somewhere and actually employ someone, and you can also put the money that you are getting as a salary in an investment account and making sure that it has started earning some passive income for you. So it's not necessarily that this one becomes so complicated for you that you start to have thinking that, oh, why do I start looking for a job now? Where should I start a business? I've never started a business. There are so many things that you can do. All right, you can sell things online as you work, or you do your job, and so on and so on. So ladies and gentlemen, this one is very important. It's very practical, and you need to consider having it. Now, on my point number 4, ladies and gentlemen, you need to put assets into work. There are some people, let me just first of all put this one on the whiteboard. Put assets, let me write, put available assets, put available assets into work. This one is very funny. There are some people who live in reserve areas. There are some people who live in reserve areas, and these people are going to have liquidity issues. You hear them that I don't have money, but someone is having 5 acres of land. 5 acres of land. They live in reserve areas, but they are the most people that have liquidity issues. They are not going to have money. They are always borrowing money. Probably they are borrowing their children money to send them something to eat for supper and so on. But they have, like, someone is having 10 acres of land, 20 acres of land. That land is an asset that is lying idle and is not generating any kind of income. So if you tell them to utilize that land, probably if they don't have the capability of probably doing farming activities and so on, they can lease the land to other people who have money and actually who are interested in doing that particular business, and then they are going to receive the rental from the land. And you find them, they are not going to want that, as if they are seeing this person might actually walk away from this with this land. So there is some level of primitivity there, and I don't like it. So it's one area that people need to improve on. You might find someone who has a very good car, or a car that is consuming fuel very well, and he or she is struggling with liquidity issues. And instead of putting this car at that particular moment is a liability, because you are putting fuel in the car, you are paying each and every cost that comes along with that car, and then you find yourself in a pocket that you have some liquidity issues. Now, instead of asking yourself, how can you convert that car to be an asset, or actually make it an asset that can actually generate some income for you? You can do some business with it. You can do Uber. You can carry people from one place to the other, and so on and so on, so that you can have solved that problem of liquidity. So ladies and gentlemen, every asset, as long as it's available and it's ready for disposal to have some money in your pocket, can be turned into assets, or it can be made an asset that can actually be able to generate some income for you. So it doesn't have to be a silent asset, whereby a silent asset is just an asset that is lying there, it's doing nothing, it's not giving you money, but you are having problems with money, and actually the asset that you're having cannot be able to help you. Even our gadgets, our phones, our laptops become assets that can be able to generate some income, because are now having a lot of social media activities and so on and so on. This one goes to the young people who just have their gadgets, very expensive gadgets, but their work is just to scroll and watch videos, watch movies and so on, take pictures, selfies, go out with friends and have some fun, but they don't have actually an economic activity that they can do online to actually see that they can earn some money. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are young and you are watching me, you can actually turn that phone of yours to be actually an asset that can be able to generate some income for you. So put available assets into work is another very strong point that you can utilize during these hard economic times. And actually you are going to see some changes in your liquidity, or you are going to improve your liquidity and actually be able to meet your expenses. The last point that I'm going to talk about is to avoid debt at all costs, but instead you're supposed to make sure that you have saved more money. Here we are talking about to avoid debts. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is a mistake that people normally, there are some mistakes that people are going to do when they have liquidity issues or when they need money. Now, when you are having problems with money and you want to settle some debts, or you want to pay some some expenses, that is not the time that you go to borrow, or probably you approach your circle, your bank, and then you want to borrow money. Now, first ask yourself, if the income that you are getting is not able to settle, if the income that you are getting is not able to settle your expenses, or is not able to pay your bills. Now, if the income that you are getting is not able to settle the bills, where are you going to get the money to pay back the loan that you want to borrow so that you can settle the bills? Now, that is a question that people do not normally ask themselves before they take loans. And then instead of solving problems of liquidity, you actually find that you have created another problem, and you have actually added another liability into your life instead of actually solving it. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you find yourself that you are illiquid and you are not able to meet your expenses, it's always good to find for alternative ways. You can borrow money from parents, or you can borrow money from relatives who are not going to kukuharakisha, so that you can be able to pay. But if you go to a financial institution, that one is a profit-making organization, and they don't care whether you're having some problems or not. So they don't mix emotions with business. So they are going to give you money, but they expect you to pay back the money regardless of the problems that you're facing. So if you really have some liquidity issues and you want to pay some bills, you can engage your parents, you can engage your siblings, you can engage your sisters and brothers, so that they can help you, but not going to borrow. Have a debt that is not going to have some pressure on you. For example, you borrow money from your parents or relatives if they are able to help you. So you are avoiding debts is very crucial here. People go running to even Shylocks, because they know, you put your assets like security, you put your car because you have a car, and then Shylock is going to tell you, now, you see, you have a car that is worth 1.5 million. We can give you 200,000. Then you can sort your issues, and then later you can pay us back the money. If you're not able to pay us to pay back the money, then your car is gone, and it can be even sold as that 300,000 just to cover the cost, and they get their money back. So, ladies and gentlemen, be very careful with liquidity. It's very important, because being illiquid is a serious problem, because it means that you are not able to meet your daily expenses, you are not able to pay your bills, and so on and so on. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I decided to make this video for you, so that I can be able to explain to you what are you supposed to do when you find yourself illiquid. Number one, make sure you budget wisely. If you don't have a source of income, make sure that you look for one. And if it becomes so hard for you, there are always ways that you can do. You can look for, you can go back home, you can move to your parents' places. It's very hard to say this, but sometimes you find yourself in that situation. If you are living in urban areas and has become so hard for you to get some money, instead of getting yourself into debts, you can just take a step back a little and then engage into a constructive way of looking for money by going back to your parents and re-strategize on how you are going to start having some money. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have some income, instead of getting into debts, you can save more. Do not get into debts, but just make sure that you realign your expenses and how you are going to allocate your money. That is budgeting wisely. You can cut unnecessary costs. We have talked about that, and how you can change your behaviors and your way of spending money. You can look for extra sources of income. Here we have said that it's challenging. This is not a place to stay, to be comfortable with the only one source of income that you're, even if it's a business. Think of how you can expand that business. Think of how you can increase the services and the products that you are selling. All right. So put available assets into work. If you have assets like land, if you have assets like even phones for the young people, the laptops and so on and so on, just get into online, Google, and see how you can convert those gadgets into something that can make you some money. You can do some research, you can do some online job and actually earn some few coins there so that you can be able to pay your bills. So ladies and gentlemen, as I wind up my video, that is all I had prepared for today. How to stay liquid in these hard economic times until we have some, until our country becomes good when it comes to economy. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, that is all I had. Please make sure that you utilize what I've told you. And I told you at the beginning that this is a reason that you should always stay subscribed in this particular channel, because this is all we talk about, and we make sure that you are sorted when it comes to financial information. Remember, the ultimate goal is financial freedom. And we said this one is not a choice, it is a must. All right. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That was my time. See you on the next.